What's up, everybody? So I'm back this week, and it is June 2nd, and this is my review for Impact on AXS TV. Again, it's June 2nd episode, so if you haven't seen it, you might want to call off my review, but maybe you have seen it, so that's why you're here. But as you can see, I am accompanied by my friend. She is the very talented, the host of the Miranda show, which you can find on thechairshot.com, and the co-host of her new project, Lucha Central Weekly. She's my friend, Miranda Morales. How's it going?
Hi, Najera. Yeah, I'm doing really well. I'm really excited to have watched this episode of Impact with you. It's been a few months since we've actually talked and watched some wrestling. So I was really excited to have this chance to watch this week's episode with you.
I'm so happy to see you. It's been a while. For anybody, we had so many plans this year of things we were going to collaborate on. And, you know, much like you all have been affected by the pandemic, having to kind of reshuffle, to go back to the drawing boards just a little bit. But we stayed in contact enough, and we knew sooner or later that we were going to have to do something. We still got much more to do in the future. By all means, definitely check out her projects as well. All that information will be in the description below. But as always, we're just trying to stay busy, trying to continue to give you guys content to be interested in, and obviously talk some Impact.
Yes.
So look, Impact for the last couple of weeks has been really buzzworthy with all the news, week after week after week, major signings, news, deals, and so on. Just led me to this week to say, okay, now we're not going to go 5 for 5 and sign this week. But I was curious. I was like, will it be somebody else? I just was trying to think of names and stuff, but no one did sign this week. There was no news about it. I mean, again, it was like a drug that just kept giving you more and more and more to the point that we're just so accustomed to it.
Yeah.
But it's good though. I love that the news that they're creating, and we will talk a little bit more, but I can't emphasize enough. And I'm glad people in the comments in last week's review totally agree. This is the best Impact Knockouts roster maybe of all time. With thoughts on that?
I agree. I'm really excited to watch this Impact's division, the Knockouts division. I mean, as we'll talk about with this week's tag match, was very entertaining, but also very athletic. It told a great story in the ring, and one that will also be told outside of the ring as well. And I think Impact should be really proud of their women's division. It's not easy to have to build a roster, and a lot of it almost from scratch. But they've done a fantastic job with it.
Right on. And again, I think you bring up a good point. Being able to sign talent while things are happening in the world, you know, you're not really sure of someone's status. You're obviously not being able to see current, work that they're being able to do. Who knows if anybody may be like losing interest in wrestling at all because they're not being able to do it continuously. It is a lot of work that and considerations to have to think to be able to do that. And you know, some people may not be willing to want to work right now. It's just a lot of factors, but the fact that they bring it all together and really is showcasing one stacked division, you got to give your hats off to them and or tip your hat to them. They're doing a hell of a job. And I really, as much as I complained the other week about not having any knockouts matches on the card, I love the fact of starting tonight with Kylie Rae with Susie versus Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steelz. And I got to say, I love both. Matter of fact, everybody in the ring, I have a lot of interest with. I'm super interested in Susie. Always been a huge fan of Susie Su Yung. But when you just think about the combinations and the dynamics between everybody in there, this can get super interesting, or maybe creepy. I don't know.
Yeah. It was funny. Susie's entrance was super creepy, and it's interesting how her music relays one message, but her entrance, her physical form, creates something very different. And actually, on paper, the team of Kylie Rae and Susie make a lot of sense. Even their outfits were matching, and I don't know how intentional that was, but both very cute, very happy, I guess, if you want to call Susie happy. But both can have a somewhat of a mean streak. Both can be very fierce competitors, and I do like this duo.
And talking about the other team now, Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steelz, I know they're friends in real life. I've seen them work in separate tag teams. I've seen them obviously work solos. I honestly do not ever recall if I've ever seen them work in a tag. And then instantly when Tasha signed, I also never considered them tagging. So this was the combination of a tag team that I didn't know that I wanted, that I absolutely needed. Their energy and how organic they are together, it's just flawless. And easily this was my match of the night, starting off the show, just because of all the energy, the craziness, the creepiness, the cohesiveness. There's just a lot that goes on in the match. And although Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steelz won the match by the 3 count, everybody won in this match, if you ask me, because I think the fans thoroughly, I enjoyed it. And it told a lot of story and a lot of direction of things that we could get in the future. I can't emphasize enough, we got a lot of Susie in this match. When do they tip the curve and Su Yung becomes a factor in this? And what happens to Kylie Rae teaming with Susie, Su Yung? Do we get another side of Kylie Rae in the future? And I could imagine how interesting that could be, because it's always been Smiley Kylie, but who knows? Who knows?
I think that one aspect of the Knockouts division and some of the storylines with the paranormal and the mystique is that you never know who you're going to get. And Su Yung has been one of the most mysterious characters on the entire roster. And one theme that's been reoccurring within Impact, and especially in the Knockouts division, is this theory of light and darkness. I mean, we saw it with Ali. We've seen it with Su Yung. We've even seen it with Rosemary. So it would be telling the same story, but with a very different person. And I wouldn't be bored of it. I think it would be very interesting to see what that would look like with Kylie Rae. I actually really like Kiera Hogan's role in this. Madison Rayne acknowledged her as being this mentor to Tasha Steelz. And I actually like now this acknowledgement of Kiera's elevation within the Impact roster. Now she's a little bit more of that senior level, where she's always been a little bit on that younger side, always the mentee, always being the one who was looked after. Now she's taken someone under her wing. And I love that dynamic with her and Tasha. It was very organic, very entertaining, very flamboyant. They play a really good, heel team together. But I could also see it being somewhat of a face team in the future, where they're just fun living, but they also kick ass in the ring. So just as we talked a little bit about Susie and Kylie, I also see, if they took it further along down the road, a really fun tag team with Kiera and Tasha.
Well said. And definitely, we talked before we recorded, and I've said it continuously each and every week. Madison Rayne on commentary has been one of the biggest highlights for me since the transition of no crowds and Impact having to kind of cope with the pandemic situation. Her and Josh Matthews, just how organic they are together, which makes sense. It's definitely there, but she just really truly elevates the commentary team like no other. That just thoroughly makes it enjoyable. But quickly, just in case anybody who's never watched any of the reviews I do here on Impact, we're not going to break down each and every match. We're just going to talk about the things that really piqued our interest, some things you definitely need to check out, and so on. And nonetheless, you definitely want to just make sure that each and every week you tune into Impact on AXS TV, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. But yeah, we're just highlighting a few things that really stood out to us. So moving on. So something that was very interesting to me was actually this clip right here.
Joining me now is Ace Austin. Ace, right before this tournament started, you lost a pretty big match to Willie Mack.
No, just stop right there, okay? You being new here and all, I really hoped that you'd be different than everybody else around here, because everybody else is so concerned with the past. Too much talk of what's happened before. I don't dwell on the past. I always look forward. I always move toward the future, okay? And my future especially after the finals tonight, looks a lot like the World Championship. I've outgrown the X Division. It's time for something more my size.
Porn star. Should I say the magician? I'm just kidding. You should be proud of yourself. You beat two great competitors in Rhino and Hernandez. And tonight, you have a chance to be the #1 contender to the World Championship. And why am I here? Well, I'm just here to tell you how prestigious this title I have is. Men like Kurt Angle had this title. Men like Rob Van Dam had this title. Men like Sting had this title. So if you win tonight, if I was you, I wouldn't go after the Impact World Championship because that's a second-rate title. I would come after TNA Heavyweight Championship.
Maybe I will.
Impact Wrestling, tonight, 8/7 Central on AXS TV.
Okay, so with that happening there, I am very curious to see what Ace Austin does. If he, and we'll talk about the conclusion of the main event for the night, but Ace Austin has truly a decision to make. And this is interesting to me because of something else that I said last week. Do you do Ace Austin and Tessa Blanchard part 2? Obviously, Ace is saying he outgrown the X division and he wants something more his size. And then Moose is like, we'll come after the TNA Heavyweight Championship. This is intriguing because do you double down on a match you've already done before that really didn't go over, I think, as good as they wanted it to go? Or do you do Moose versus Ace Austin? And if you have Ace Austin win it, that could be intriguing. Him being a heel, him being the hell of a champ, if you ask me as well, too. So, even if he was to win, I think it's a good, I think it'll be a good look for the interest of that title and that division, if you want to say. But the other big thing I've been thinking about is that I'm truly convinced with all the original, and as they stated every single time, of all the original TNA roster members coming back, I think they're truly trying to build another show. And I think if you were going to build another show, somebody like Ace Austin and Moose being the few to really be the showcase of that show, along with the other people. We know Ace Austin's locked into his deal for a long time, as he talked about all the time. So you have some longevity in that person as well as Moose. And if you really want to get people back eyes on the brand, I think like that it makes sense that he goes that direction, where you had Tessa Blanchard still, as the Impact world champion, and that pertained to the crowd of people that's been watching this the entire time. But just let it be no mistaken, people aren't interested. Some people did not tune back into Impact. They were just solely TNA fans. And I think if you're truly trying to bring everything all back together, I think this is a really good, interesting way to get Impact fans to watch TNA, bring back TNA fans, and to draw back interest in Impact. I mean, I don't know. I need a job.
You are a mastermind. You're putting all the pieces together. The theory is carrying some weight, and you make a good point. I mean, because you're also thinking about actively. So what we've already seen with Ace versus Tessa, and that had a few weeks to build up. And you're right. I don't think it got the momentum that the company was looking for, and also, she's just not actively on TV now, and we don't know when she's going to be on TV next. And that's usually, your big championship is what you focus a lot of your television time on. So if you don't have a title that's actively defended, what else do you do? And so, right now with Moose being the person holding a heavyweight championship, and being open to defending it to newcomers. I think that's a really good sign that one, it's something that we will see in the future, but two, it's going to be a program I think that will get fans interested, both new fans of Impact who have been watching Impact, and then older TNA fans that know the belt and know the history. It really is a blending of the new and the old per se, and with the circumstances now of limited talent, limited filming opportunities, I think they've come up with something really creative and unique. And hell, I would definitely be interested in a Moose versus Ace Austin match. I would shut up and take my money. I'm going to watch it.
Yeah, I can't stress it enough. They've been two of the most interesting talents on the roster, and let it be no mistaken that whatever they decide to do with the two of them, people will put eyes on them for the people who are tuned in to Impact. So that could get interesting. So really quickly, not that I have much interest in this match with Joseph P. Ryan with what formerly known as OVE Dave and Jake against mentally unwell Steve, Crazy Steve, who we just talked about, re-signed a couple of weeks ago back to Impact Wrestling. Obviously, I was not a fan of this finish with Joey Ryan and winning with a super kick, but and maybe it ended abruptly because it appeared possibly Crazy Steve was cut, but who knows? But that's not the important thing. The thing I've been kind of focusing on was what's going to happen with OVE, which is a stable that I thought that had so much momentum. Sammy Callahan is greased lightning hot, no matter whatever his gimmick is. But him leaving, with Madman Fulton leaving, what was going to happen with the two of them? And then we kind of seen them align with Joseph P. Ryan and the cancel culture. And looks like Jake made his decision to join Joey. What happens with Dave solo here? Is there any interest in this at all? Like I'm at this point now, I'm just like out the window.
Well, I mentioned while we were watching a little bit that I think in both dynamics, Joey Ryan and Joseph P. Ryan are both characters that are reliant on a crowd reaction. And that's what's helped build his career. And I think the cancel culture would be a lot more well received, or at least understood, with an audience there to actively boo him. Because there isn't anybody there, I think it's a little confusing and fans aren't quite sure how to receive it, and still don't know what this ultimately will mean for, Joseph P. Ryan. And now, I guess his newest addition with Jake Chris. I am sad that OV has dissolved. I thought they were a really powerful faction. I really love heel stables. And now with Sammy doing his own thing, and Madman Fulton leaving, I guess you could have had OV as a tag team, but I think that those final two pieces probably weren't going to be strong enough to be on their own. So dissolving them fully probably makes sense, in the hopes that one day you can bring them all back together, or in some kind of new iteration, and fans can really well receive it. But I think it's, part of the ebbs and flows of anyone in pro wrestling is you go through evolution and character changes. Is it going to be a good one? No. But I do feel like the silver lining will be once hopefully they do go back to their older versions, and they're going to be much more well received and appreciated the next time around. But I think sometimes you just got to let things dissolve a bit and change. But it's not going to be good. I'm sorry, I just don't think it's going to be that entertaining.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Can we cancel culture?
See, it's interesting because I'm not really a big fan of the cancel culture in real life. I get it's wrestling, so it's a gimmick, and I'm a fan of Joey Ryan, and Joey Ryan obviously going into a new gimmick. So it had all the right things for me to be interested in it. But I think you're right. The crowds definitely, the response definitely will feed into that, and just the OVE dissolve. I agree. Just we'll see. I don't know. Hold my reserves for that one, but for right now, out the window. So something else I kind of had my reserves out on is locker room talk, and I would say that I haven't been the biggest fan of the segments, but this week was absolutely hilarious. I thought it was absolutely hilarious. Johnny Swinger is a special character. Him and Chris Bahh, like I said, I had reserves on that as well last week.
Yeah.
Until what happened last week, and I was like, okay, I'm buying into this fully now. So knowing that Chris Bahh was going to be on Locker Room Talk, I said, okay, let's see what happens. This was a fun episode. Johnny Swinger is a complete lunatic, brother. And the way how he just kept cutting off Chris Bahh and Chris Bahh giving him that shady look.
Yeah, the looks. Just for the looks of itself was worth the time.
Yeah, I just thought it was funny. I had to give a mention to it because I haven't really talked about it too much, but I thought this week was absolutely hilarious. One of the bright spots of this week, and I definitely laughed a bunch at Johnny Swinger. I'm definitely curious to see how him and Chris Bahh forms and move together in weeks to come, considering that X Division Championship versus Willie Mack. And they say, wait, for next week, they're going to work as a tag team. But he said, hey, if we work as a tag team, you got to help me with Willie Mack. So there's a lot more to come. And again, I don't want people to forget, there is a Rich Swann that is recovering somewhere, probably Baltimore, Maryland, getting ready to return at some point. So Willie ain't by himself. So I'm very curious to see how that goes. So we will see. We will definitely see. Any remarks on that?
No, I feel the same way about. Well, I think I had some hesitations with Johnny Swinger aligning with Chris Bahh and vice versa, because I don't personally think Chris needed it, but at the same time, it shows that Chris is really being smart about this alliance or this partnership. Like, okay, I'll play your games for a little bit, but after we win, you got to help me against Willie Mack, and then that makes a whole lot of sense because and it seems also Johnny is very oblivious to that or like ignores it, like he doesn't realize he's being used or doesn't care that he's being used because he's just so into himself and his teammate and all of that. So it's not going to be long term. It's just there as part of the process, but that's also what makes it fun. There's no illusions to it. Chris is using Johnny and just Johnny's there for the ride. But yeah, actually really entertaining segment this week. The looks that Chris Bahh gave Johnny the entire time was totally worth the entire segment.
That's right, brother. Look, there is no coincidence that the Impact flashback moment of the week happens to be Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley, and I'm just going to move on to the next thing after noting that. But look, I know, right? But
they knew what day it was. They know what's happening. They have a calendar right in front of them. So
100%. So with so much emphasis on the Knockouts division, the signing of Kimberly, Deonna Purrazzo showing up, or signing, Tasha Steelz signing, and Susie re-signing. We talked in the beginning of the show how this is, I think, undoubtedly the best Knockouts division of all time, and probably and arguably, should I say, the best women's division currently. None of that. All that's being said, and in case you might have forgotten, there are two big names on that roster who have not appeared on Impact in a little more over than a month, and that is your Knockouts division champion, Jordynne Grace, along with the person that she beat for the championship, and Taya Valkyrie, who both appeared this week. So as if it was not already star-studded, this was a quick reminder that, hey, don't forget. Don't forget.
You got a champion, an amazing champion and a dynamic former champion that's still gonna fight.
Yep. And they look like they're ready to go next week. So I cannot wait for that. Cannot wait to see Jordynne Grace. Both of them are two of my favorites in all of wrestling, period. Cannot wait to see them back in the ring together. And I know they're hungry because they've been sitting around, just training, studying. I've talked to Jordynne a couple of times, and she's definitely ready to go. And still super, super young in her career, and still just one of the best to do. And Taya is just probably going to go down as one of the best women's wrestler of just probably one of the best wrestlers of all time.
All time. I mean,
Yeah.
Jordan went through a lot to just get to that title. So I know that she's not going to make it out all easy for Taya to get it back. But Taya is really one of the most athletic wrestlers, period, men and women on the entire roster.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited for this rematch that has been, a while in the making.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it just sucks because a lot of momentum, after the victory because of the pandemic. So they are ready to prove to you guys, hey, I know you guys talking about everybody else, but don't forget about us. I cannot wait. But okay, so the main event, Ace Austin versus Trey. And that's what's on paper. That's what we in the beginning of the show. Yeah. And before anything had happened, they were both billed as probably two of the biggest underdog in the tournament. Nonetheless, Trey didn't make it to the ring. Trey was jumped, attacked backstage in some way, shape, or form. It was a little under dramatic. And long story short of this is that I'm gonna say, this tournament has just been a complete joke to me. I'm sorry, it just really has. So okay, Trey gets jumped in a way where he's just, the traditional wrestling of somebody being knocked out backstage and get help. Wentz gets mad. Wentz goes out because he says he thinks Ace Austin does it. Scott D'Amore comes out and said, book the match. So this is your main events. Wentz versus Ace Austin for the number one contender the number one contender for the world championship against, I guess, whoever they choose. Obviously, Ace Austin won, which we already talked about. But the biggest match to me is just like, why is there so many pieces of this tournament that just did not make sense? That they were just like, well, just do that. And this was just another one that just was like, well, if Wentz is going to sell my brother so hard, and what's face and Trey didn't even really look brutally attacked. It could have been Fleet for,
Yeah, he just looked kind of knocked out, but you didn't see you didn't even see his face.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't like the build for that. And which could have been an amazing main event, not to take away from the match that happened, but considering the storyline implications, I was torn because I was like, all right, the match is cool, but like the whole tournament, this is the winner of the tournament, and it did not deliver. The tournament was a big joke to me. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
No, and when you think about who was in the tournament, I mean, they emphasized who Ace Austin beat to get to that final spot with Hernandez and I believe Michael Elgin, and already people who were in the tournament already. I mean, you had established Impact wrestlers in there. So the fact that they were beaten by these underdogs, these up and comers, that itself. I thought that was actually a good play within this tournament to build up some of your younger stars, but to essentially throw away the final match and not have Trey participate, I thought was then wasting weeks of what they built. They really could have leveraged, even if it was Trey and Austin, and we've seen it before. This was a different iteration. It could have been a different iteration because it wasn't for the X Division champion. It wasn't, Ace going after Trey's mom or whatever. It was for a higher level prize, and they could have treated it as more of a higher level match. But instead, they just threw in some shenanigans in there that really discounted, I think, what they built some weeks doing with the origins of the tournament. So luckily the right person won, because I would have flipped my lid if Ace wouldn't have won, because then someone who wasn't even in the tournament at all would have won, and that I thought would have been just incredibly frustrating. So they made the right decision, but the way they went about it, I guess that just was somewhat confusing to me.
Much like I said in the very beginning of this was the 2020 annual Hunger Games for Impact Wrestling. The fact that like somebody just gets thrown in there automatically and potentially can win it is blasphemy. And then Michael Elgin, who was already the number one contender, had to go through the tournament again to be the number one contender. What?
He didn't even get a chance.
Because the two other people who were supposed to show up didn't.
Yeah.
So
and the fact that he was already in the building when we saw him earlier that night, he was in the building. Like the fact that he didn't come out running, or Wentz got that
opportunity. You're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
and then as far as like Michael Elgin not coming out to be like, this is not right. Like I'm gonna beat some people up. Like I'm surprised that didn't happen. That would have actually made more sense to me, even though it would have been more chaotic. The fact that Michael Elgin didn't come out to be like, what the hell, you guys? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it'll build up, because there was something that, again, in tribute to Madison Rayne, she mentioned that, this could have been something internal with the Rascalz. Maybe Wentz was a part of that. And if they take this down some line with the Rascalz, maybe I would understand. But then why are you breaking up another team? Why are you breaking up another faction when you actually need that strength now more than ever?
Yeah. And by the way, were you going to make Wentz the #1 contender for 2 different things in one night?
That's true. Yeah, that's true. He can't have all the love. Who did he bribe to get the #1 contender shot?
At this point, jeez. Yeah, so I don't know. They got a lot to discuss next week on that. So I definitely am curious to see how that's handled. They do a good job, I will say, in correcting errors from previous weeks. So I'm definitely, and as an error, I mean, it's all the storyline. I get it, but as a fan watching it, like, it's completely doesn't make sense to me. So I have a lot of faith that we'll see how this all plays out next week. But yes, that's all I got for tonight for this episode. Ms. Miranda, anything else you want to touch upon before we wrap this up?
No, I mean, this was overall actually a really entertaining episode. There was some amazing wrestling throughout the show, some really funny vignettes as well. There's a few we didn't touch on, so you guys should really watch this week's Impact to get the whole story.
Right on. I would love to have you back next week to watch it, and everybody that's watching this, I'd love to have you all back too. Watching it. But as always, you can expect my review each and every Tuesday at the conclusion of Impact Wrestling on AXS TV. Miranda, thank you so much for joining me tonight. And as I said, you can get all her information, catch up on all her content, and listen to her weekly podcast and other things in the description below. But as far as for this show, that'll be a wrap. And I'll catch you guys next week.